This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. Hey, school success makers. Today we're joined by my new friend Terry, who is the head of school of a Christian school in the great state of North Carolina. He's doing some amazing things. I love this interview, and I'm sure you will too. So please stay tuned for this next episode of the School Success Podcast. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of North Carolina, Terry Moffitt, who is the head of school at Hayworth Christian School in beautiful North Carolina, guys. This is right in the very middle of the state in a city called High Point, North Carolina. And I love, North Carolina has a good place in my heart because my wife's from there. My in-laws live there. I go visit there fairly regularly to see the family, especially since we got a toddler at home. So I love this state, and I'm excited to hear from Terry and what's going on with his school. But I don't want to take any of the thunder away from him, so I'm going to pass it off to him to introduce himself. So, Mr. Terry, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you, Mitchell. It's wonderful to be with you. I appreciate the invitation. I have been in education in one form or another now for 40 years. My wife just retired after teaching at the same Christian school for 42 years in third grade. So Christian education and education in general has been something that has been a family tradition for us. So we've learned a lot of lessons and seen things change quite a bit over that time period.
Yeah, I bet. 42 years for your wife to teach in the same class from the same school for 42 years?
Yes.
Wow. That's incredible.
Well, she was an incredible teacher. I can say that because I was her boss for 9 of those years. She predated me, so all the pressure was on me, not on her.
Man, I'm sure she's got some cool stories too. I bet you she has taught her class from 40 years ago, teaching their kids and maybe even grandkids. I don't know if it's gotten that close before, but she's probably taught generations of the same kids. Has that happened? Do you know if she's done that?
Oh, yeah. When she started teaching great-grandchildren, she decided it was time to retire.
Oh, man. Teachers are amazing. When I hear, that's 42 years, I'm going to share that with my wife just because that's, it's incredible because the school my son goes to, it's a little private school down the road from us. And we met one of the teachers of the class he's going to be in this fall. And she's like, I've been here at the school, this same classroom for 28 years, teaching the same group. And I was like, my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, 28 years? In my head, literally the first reaction I had, and I don't know if this is a good reaction or a bad reaction, I felt sad for her. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, I don't know if she's like, can't get away from it or if she loves it so much. I had like a weird reaction in my head. And I talked to her afterwards and she's just like, I love it so much. She's like, I love this age group. I love these kiddos. And she's like, I can't imagine doing anything different at a different school. And so I was like, man, we need more people like you that are so focused and dedicated on that next generation and pouring into those kiddos. So kudos to your wife, man. Give her a shout out for me when you get home tonight, man. That's awesome.
I will. Cindy will appreciate that.
Man, I'm thinking maybe we should have Cindy on the podcast instead of Terry.
She could tell you a lot. She has had some really interesting times over 42 years.
Wow. Well, obviously you live in North Carolina. What kind of fun things do you like to do in North Carolina? What keeps you going?
Well, our 3 grandchildren live not too far from us. Our son-in-law went to the school where Cindy taught and where I was the K-12 principal when we started out. And I actually admitted him in first grade and put him in my daughter's classroom. And so we're a pretty tight family, needless to say. So it's good to have them back after they were in Dallas, Texas, and Knoxville, Tennessee for some years. So we had one grandchild born in Dallas, one born in Knoxville, and then the third one was born here in Greensboro, because they were living over there at the time. But most of what we do revolves around family. Cindy's parents are still here and live about 2 miles from us. So we're a pretty close-knit family.
Good. I love it. Family is so important, and it's, not everybody has a close-knit family. So I love that you guys have that and basking in it and embracing it.
We are.
So if your wife's retiring, are you going to be retiring soon, or are you going to stick it out for a few more years here at the school?
Mitchell, I don't know. I tried retirement for 3 months, and it about killed me. So I actually came out of retirement to take the job I'm currently in, and I'm just enjoying it so much. I mean, I've been working since I was 5 years old. I don't know. I just didn't handle not working well.
Aww. Well, tell me a little bit about Hayworth then. Tell me about I'd love to know how big the school is in terms of enrollment, as well as if it's attached to a church, if there's a sending church that's a part of the school as well. A little bit about the school.
Well, the school is actually a small Christian school here in High Point. It's the smallest school I've ever run. I've run schools as large as 1,500. So I didn't know how I would enjoy this, but it's been just a great family feel. And the kids and the families are wonderful to work with here. And I'm not just saying that. They just have been great. So looks like for the next school year, we'll be at about 125 or so. Didn't have but 79 students when I took the job. So we're on a growth curve. And I'm proud of our seniors. All 7 of them got into college as their first choice, and the 7 of them managed to win over $710,000 in scholarships in the process. So we have a good cross-section of the community here. High Point is a great place to live, but we draw from our whole area. We have, 4 counties that border the city of High Point, that parts of High Point are in here in North Carolina, and we have students from every single county. So it's a cross-section of economically, it's a cross-section ethnically, and so it's just a good place to be.
Good. Well, that's exciting for you guys being 79 last year and then on point to be at 125. Do you guys have capacity to grow bigger than that?
Yeah, we were at 79 when I came here 3 years ago. Now we're at 120. It looks like we're going to be at about 125.
Okay. Do you guys have capacity to grow bigger than that with the building you're in?
Yeah, with the building we're in, we can go slightly over 200. So we're already looking at a building right here on our current property that will be an educational facility with classrooms and a gym and several other things. So we're already looking ahead to that.
Awesome. And are you guys a part of a church? Is it like a church-sponsored school or kind of very independent all by itself?
Well, we have a separate incorporation from the church, but we were incorporated as a mission of Hayworth Wesleyan Church. But the kids who come from Wesleyan churches don't make up the majority of our students. Just like we have students from all over the area, we have them from a wide variety of churches as well.
And you guys do anything extracurricular there at the school that you offer, like sports or anything?
Oh, yeah. We offer quite a few sports and have been adding some each year since I came here. Plus, we have a nice drama and music program here. We combined with homeschoolers in the area so we can have a band and actually have a pretty large band as a result. And that starts as early as 3rd grade. And we have a band director who he kind of travels around. He works with several of the community colleges in our area, as well as at least one other Christian school. And so he's very good at what he does. He worked with me at another school. So I knew he was very talented when I came here. So we tried to give him that background, have an excellent art teacher who never ceases to amaze me with what she gets out of the kids. And some of the students, it's interesting, are the ones that turn out to have a lot of talent are the ones that say they could never draw or they could never, sculpt anything or do anything like that. And she just does a fantastic job in getting that out of them. So I've been blessed here to have a wonderful staff.
Awesome. That's probably the perfect segue into the first thing I like to ask guests is just some going into challenges. Obviously, that's not a challenge you guys have, but I'm assuming, like you said, you're at a school that was a little bit smaller 3 years ago, and you've been able to grow it. With that, typically comes maybe even some growing pains, like you mentioned the building. But what are some challenges you're kind of up against right now, and how are you combating those?
Well, we were lucky in that we did not have to do remote education for very long. Governor Cooper here in the state of North Carolina has shut everything down starting in mid-March and through the summer 2 years ago. And so that was a challenge, just getting the students and the teachers acclimated to remote learning at that point. Since then, we haven't missed a day the last 2 years. We just haven't had very many COVID cases here in our school, and the ones that have been exposed have taken the initiative and done what they were supposed to do. So that part hasn't been difficult. I think one of the big challenges we face as student population grows and we have a number of students coming in from the area public schools is bringing them up to speed, because so many of them have fallen behind in the remote learning because it's just not their cup of tea. And so just being able to work with them and get them where they need to be, which in a small school is much easier to do. I tell our students when they come in that, I know you're coming from big classes. Some of the middle schools and high schools in our area have 40 to 45 students in the classroom. And they're going to come into a classroom here of maybe 14 students at most. And I tell them, you can't run and you can't hide. That's the bad news. But the good news is that the teacher is going to probably know why you're having an issue, because they're going to know you personally. They're going to see their work and they're going to talk to you about it. And so the teachers have done a really nice job of bringing several kids up to speed, particularly in the area of math.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that is a challenge, obviously, like you said. Is you guys offered like extra tutoring services and stuff at the school for those kiddos?
Yeah, well, we have a list of tutors that people can. It's up to the parents and the tutor to set all that, but we'll give them the classroom to use to tutor, and that way they have access to the teacher, they have access to the textbooks, everything. So the students that we have that are being tutored are tutored right here on site, usually after school for about a half hour or 45 minutes. And that's about all they need, because the tutor knows the teachers and is able to jump right in and help the students out.
Awesome. And I know you'd mentioned earlier on, we were chatting about working with parents being a challenge. Do you remember what you were meaning when you're talking about working with parents being a challenge?
Yeah, one of the nice things about being in a school this size is you do get to know the parents and the grandparents very personally. That's not the case in some of the bigger schools I have been in. But, I would say the biggest challenge with parents, and I get this consistently from teachers who have been in teaching for some time, and that is there tends to be less support for the teacher in those instances where a child has had an issue than there were some years ago. Now, as I say here, that has really not been a big issue, but it has been in the schools that I've been in past in recent years. The idea is the school must be wrong first, and then they go from there.
Well, I've interviewed some other Christian guests, and I've asked this question to them, and just curious kind of where you guys do on it. Some schools, there's two different models, that I've kind of come across. You have some Christian schools that they don't require the parents or the students to be Christian or sign a, statement of faith. And there's some that are like, hey, no, we require at least one of the parents to sign one, but the kid doesn't have to be. Kind of where do you guys fall as a Christian school with requiring that and not?
Yeah, we are what's called a covenant school. So at least one parent has to be either a member or a regular attender at a church in the area. We don't stipulate what type of church. And with most of our families, both parents do attend. And then when the students come in, we're not naive enough to think that they are already Christians. They've been exposed to it, but Christian faith is not one that works by osmosis. So we know that coming in. We just want to know that, the family itself has some church connection. So, for instance, this year in our little school, we've had 31 kids who have come to board for the first time. And so we need to be able to let their pastor know, let their families know, and so they can take it from there. And then we'll keep reinforcing what we do. I'm a firm believer that if the school, the church, and the family are all on the same page, that's about the strongest foundation you can have for a child.
I agree with that. That's good. That's very good. And perfect segue into, literally perfect. You set it up, Terry. Perfect segue into the next part.
I'm doing my best for you, Mitchell. What can I say?
What a natural, man. I'll slip you a 20 later or something. Is being able to give you a chance to brag about the school. So, you guys are growing, you guys are doing some cool things, but what other things are going awesome that you kind of want to just brag on the school for a little bit?
Well, when I got here, the academic rigor wasn't quite what it should be, so we've been strengthening that each year. I told the teachers I want them to increase the challenge, but not increase it to the point where they frustrate the students. And so, you have a number of students who have been here since kindergarten, and you don't go back and redo some of those foundations just overnight. So as we have added staff, and a number of our staff members have been here a long time as well, and then even some of our new staff members have taught in the public schools. They've retired. They've always wanted to teach in a Christian school, so they've come in. So things have really started to improve there. We're not where I want us to be yet, but we're getting there. The other thing is just juggling the whole financial piece. We are the least one of the, if not the least expensive schools here in town. The other really big schools here in town, and there are two really large Christian schools that go daycare through 12, and then there's a local Catholic school that goes K to 8 and then feeds a high school not too far from them. And all of them have tuition that's significantly higher than ours. And so trying to make ends meet right now with inflation like it is a challenge, but it looks like we're going to finish up the school year well in the black, and so that's good. So that helps us continue to hold tuition down.
Okay.
And, the final challenge I would mention is I read an article just the other day in one of the administrative publications I get that said that teacher candidates or teacher applicants are down 40%. And I know that in North Carolina, at least, administrators are leaving education at an alarming rate. And the public schools pay much more than we do here. So that makes it a bigger challenge to be able to hire quality teachers. But just finding the right people. It shocked me over the years, and this goes back when I first went into education many years ago and started interviewing people. It shocks me the number of teachers when I ask one question, and that is, do you enjoy whatever age group they're going to be working with? And it's amazing to me the teachers who say, well, no, I don't really enjoy that age group. And I have to say, you do know who you're going to be spending 8 hours a day with, right? But some college counselor or some family member has told them they need to go into teaching. And so they have, because they hear there's lots of jobs in teaching. And they really haven't thought about what that truly involves on a day-to-day basis.
I've seen that. I know one of the issues or the challenges that people have mentioned on the podcast that we've had on is the main ones we have coming up. We have enrollment comes up, teacher retention and teacher recruitment has come up. And so, I had a guest on last week, so this one hasn't even aired yet, but I had him on last week and I was asking him about that. And I'd love to hear your feedback on this, because I was seeing what he thought, hey, where's the issue coming from? And in his opinion, he said the school leaders should be like the school head. So head of school, principal, whoever it is, their job is to make sure that their staff is loved, that is appreciated, has the freedom to do what they, are called to do, and then giving it in their hands to teach the kiddos. Like the head of school shouldn't really be, intermingling with like the kids per se. Like I think I'm doing a horrible job explaining it, but his thing was these teachers were told in high school or in college, like, hey, you're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to do this. It's going to be awesome. You're going to have fun. And they're like, that sounds great. And they get into the school, and then there's a certain head of school or principal or something that goes, oh, no. Like you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to do it this exact way from our textbook or whatever. And they like ruin the love that person thought they had, or that they did have. They did have it and they lost it. What do you think? Do you think that is accurate, or do you have a different kind of opinion of what you think may be happening?
Well, I think that's a part of it, certainly. I'm not a micromanager. I tell the teachers, if I could teach what you're teaching, I wouldn't need you, because I still teach. I teach an apologetics course to the seniors every morning. And that's why I got into this. I didn't get into this to be an administrator. So I try to treat the other teachers the way I like to be treated, and then give them the support in areas they need to be supported in. A lot of them just want to teach. And so here they don't have very much paperwork, that sort of thing. They aren't teaching to a test. We give the Iowa standardized test, but it's more to establish some benchmarks as anything else. But the thing I think that I'm seeing, there are those intangible qualities that make a teacher a really good teacher. And if I don't see those tangible qualities, then I've got questions about bringing that teacher on, because there are certain things I just can't teach them. When I get a first-year teacher, one of the main things I'm looking for is that they don't make the same mistake twice. They're going to make some mistakes because this is their first time in a classroom of their own, other than probably a short period of time as a student teacher. And so if I tell them they don't need to do it something the way they've done it, or whatever, I tried to explain to them, is this a safety issue? Is it a liability issue? That sort of thing. I don't want to crimp their creativity in the classroom. But if that teacher is on this staff, then I have seen some intangibles in them that I don't know how to describe. I'm just able to identify after all this time. That it's just the way I look at this may sound crazy, but I look at their eyes a lot. If their eyes are just lighting up when they're talking about teaching and the kids they're going to be working with and this and that, then I know that passion is in them. And if they've got the right passion and they've got good common sense, then we can work through a lot of things together.
And you've been doing this a long time. I'm sure even just sitting in front of them, yes, you said their eyes. I believe that because you've been doing this long enough to go, man, this person, they got it. Like it's clicked. It's in their head. You've been doing it long enough to know that, I would assume too.
Yeah. I became a K-12 principal when I was 27 years old. Did not have any administrative ability at all, but I had gotten out of education and had been in sales for 4 years. And in that time in sales, I learned body language and I learned things like that. And then later on, when I was running a security company for nonprofits around the world, I took a course from an FBI expert on body language. And just watching them, I use the same thing in the classroom. I can tell when I'm talking about something in the classroom, and there are certain students that are really getting fired up and want to have input into this. And so, as much as anything, it's just knowing people.
It's good, and you're dealing with people day in and day out, little humans that are going to grow up to be adults. So
that's right. And there's nothing better than a hug from a kindergartner. I'll just tell you.
It's crazy to me. I have he's not even 3 yet. It'll be 3 later this year. Is like how I literally can learn from a toddler, like legit learn from a toddler. Like he'll be, so we love to read. Obviously, that was one of my favorite things as a kid myself. I love my dad reading to me, so we read all the time. And he pointed to something one day, and he goes, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's I think I said a horse or something, because whatever it was like a shadow of something." He goes, "No, that's a zebra." And I was like, I looked at it again, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. Like that's a zebra." And so I was like, man, this kid, like he's so observant, and it just makes me laugh. Like anybody can learn from a kiddo.
Yep, they sure can. I had my elementary principal growing up was an elementary principal for 33 years up in Hendersonville, North Carolina, where I grew up. And when he retired, I was taking care of his yard for him. And he wrote a book called My Pants Are Wet, But I Didn't Do It. And it's all the knowledge and funny things that happened to him over his 33-year career. And every once in a while, if I'm having a bad day, I'll go to that book, and then I have pick-me-up files through the years of everything that kids' notes they've written me, things they've said. I mean, I would recommend that to any educator, because sometimes you can get discouraged, but something like that will pick you up in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I agree. Well, Terry, you've been doing this a long time, so I know that this last question will be awesome from you, which was giving you a chance to share a piece of advice or wisdom for any of the other school leaders that are tuning in as we kind of wrap it up and sign off. But what would that piece of advice be that you'd want to share with everybody?
Well, I've had the unique experience of teaching every grade from 6th grade through graduate students in college. And what I try to remind my teachers of, and I have things around my office that remind me that, I was a student once too. I was whatever that child I'm struggling with problem, or if they are having a discipline issue, or they're having these other things, that just helps me to remember that they're growing. And it's interesting that some of the students I had the most difficult time with through the years, once they started to mature, turned out to be some of the best students we had in the school. So don't get too discouraged about working with them early on. 3 of my first classes when I graduated from the University of North Carolina and was in education, 3 of my first classes were students that were just waiting to be old enough to drop out of school. And once those kids found out that I really cared about them, that I wasn't just in there to collect a paycheck, most of those kids turned around, and I know for a fact several of them went on to graduate and go to college because I got notes from them. And so you never know when you're going to be the catalyst to that student changing their direction. And so I have a sign in my office that's over the door. I would go out every day to go teach my class, and it just says, "The future of the world is in my classroom today." And I believe that sincerely. And so I treat every student as a valuable part of our school community and as a part of my classroom. And they can sense it. If they know that you respect them, there's a greater chance they're going to respect you back.
That is so good and so true, because whether it be a Christian school or not a Christian school, like everybody, they might not get the full family support at home that, like, for somebody who believes in them, and not to talk about Christian schools, we just know, like, realistically, obviously they might not get it everywhere where they're getting people that believe in them, but if they got that from a school leader, man, like, that's just going to help them tenfold and be like, man, this place actually legit believes in me. And one of the things I love about that too is an encouragement that I'll add to that for the school leaders is be in those moments with those students too, especially when you have those one-on-one conversations with somebody where you're giving them encouragement. And when I say that, what I mean is I heard this from, so one of the guys I really love to follow online is Tim Tebow. So I love Tim Tebow when he played at University of Florida. Back when I was in high school, I was like, oh man, I love him. Like, loved his, his Christian stance on everything. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And one of the people said, if you ever see Tim Tebow in like conference or anywhere and he's talking with somebody, he is so laser focused and on that person
Oh
he's
yeah.
talking to, and he's there. And I was like, and I'm like, I felt guilty because I know that I'm not fully there all the time when I have conversations with people. You know how your mind will float, or my phone went off or whatever. But I was like, they're so right, because I've seen videos. He is in that moment, and he is like, you're the only person that matters to him is right there. I was like, oh, that's so good, and that's so important, because I know I like that when I'm talking to people where I'm fully in their mind or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I just want to add to that because that was really good, Terry.
Well, that's, to me, my favorite thing about education is these students. I see them on their best day. I see them on their worst day. So you've got to have the ability to discipline them when it counts. But anytime I discipline a student, the next time I see them, I'm going to find something positive about them, because they don't need to see me as just the person who comes down on them when they don't do right. I laugh with them. I cry with them. There's time to be serious. There's a time for us to just goof around together. As long as you maintain that professional line that you have to maintain, the kids will come around. They may act like they don't want the boundaries you're set, and they may act like they're petrified of you, but that's the same student that will be in my office next week just saying, can I talk to you for a few minutes?
Yeah. Love it. I have loved this conversation. I love what you're doing with your school, and just want to do a quick shout out to you again for thanking you. Your wife too. Big again, shout out to her, 42 years. It's incredible. And just, however many other years you're going to keep serving in your school. Wish you absolutely nothing but the best. Wish you guys continued growth in your school. And thank you so much for pouring into that next generation for all these years, Terry.
Oh, Mitchell, it's been my honor and privilege. And thank you for having me on.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Terry for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what he's doing there in North Carolina, and I'm wishing him and his school nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And as always, I'm hoping you were able to take at least one thing from today's episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. If you're listening to this and your school is struggling to grow enrollment or find ways to automate the application process that you guys have, I would love to hear from you. You can find us online at schoolsuccessmakers.com. That's schoolsuccessmakers.com, or join our private Facebook group just for school leaders on Facebook, of course, called School Success Makers. I'd love to personally see you in our group, School Success Makers. We love helping schools, and we love what you guys are doing. We'll be here next week with another amazing guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then.